2015. We are going to read Acts chapter 18, verses 7 through 14. Okay. Then Paul left a synagogue and went next door to the house of Titus and Judas, a worshiper of God. Crispus, the synagogue leader, and his entire household believed in the Lord, and many of the Corinthians who heard Paul believed and were baptized. One night the Lord spoke to Paul in a vision. "Do not be afraid. Keep on speaking. Do not be silent, for I am with you, and no one is going to attack you or harm you, because I have many people in the city." So Paul stayed in Corinth for a year and a half, teaching them the word of God. While Gallio was proconsul of Achaia, the Jews of Corinth made united attack on Paul and brought him to the place of judgment. This man, they charged, is persuading the people to worship God in ways contrary to the law. Just as Paul was about to speak, Gallio said to them, "If you Jews were making complaint about some misdemeanor or serious crime, it would be reasonable for me to listen to you. But since it involves questions about words and names and your own law, settle the matter yourselves. I will not be judged of things." So he drove them off. Then the crowd there turned on the Scythians and the synagogue leader and beat him in the front of the proconsul. And Galileo showed no concern whatsoever. Paul stayed in Corinth for some time. Then he left the brothers and sisters and sailed to Syria, accompanied by Priscilla and Aquila. Before he sailed, he had his hair cut off at Cenchreae because of the vow he had taken. They arrived at Ephesus, where Paul left Priscilla and Aquila. He himself went to the synagogue and reasoned with the Jews. When they asked him to spend more time with them, he declined. But as he left, he promised, "I will come back if it is God's will." Then he set sail from Ephesus. When he landed in Caesarea, he went up to Jerusalem and greeted the church, and then went down to Antioch. After spending some time in Antioch, Paul set out from there and traveled from place to place throughout the region of Galatia and Phrygia, strengthening all the disciples. Meanwhile, a Jew named Apollos, a native of Alexandria, came to Ephesus. He was a learned man with the knowledge of Scriptures. He had been instructed in the way of the Lord, and he spoke with great fervor and taught about Jesus accurately, though he knew only baptism of John. He began to speak boldly in the synagogue. When Priscilla and Aquila heard him, they invited him to their home and explained to him the way of God more adequately. When Apollos wanted to go to Atria, the brothers and sisters encouraged him and wrote to the disciples there to welcome him. When he arrived, he was a great help to those who by grace had believed. For he vigorously refuted his Jewish opponents in public debate, proving the Scriptures that Jesus was the Messiah. Okay, people just don't believe it. It's a lot. So Paul in Ephesus. The riot in Ephesus is Acts chapter 19. Daily devotion today is Mom and Pop. They're up very early. They're probably up very late at night, poring out over receipts and various accounts. They turn on the lights and make sure everything is clean and in order. They check supplies, welcome sleeping employees, and rotate the window sign from closed to open. And they wait, praying, "I hope we have a good day." We are a materialistic culture, and we often buy stuff we don't need. But while thrift and simplicity do matter, so does contributing to the financial security and sense of purpose of your neighbor. In supporting your local mom and pop establishments, you aren't just buying stuff, you are supporting families, people who want to stand on their own 2 feet, people who are hoping that this dream they have pursued won't fail. Inside those store windows are people who matter and are buying from them is a gift. They must work doing something useful with their own hands, and they may have something to share with those in need. Ephesians 4:28. It's pretty cool. Near to the source, they're up even earlier, milking cows, feeding livestock, harvesting crops, traveling to town on Saturday morning. Traveling to town on Saturday morning to set up their booth in local market, praying, "I hope we have a good day." We wander through the produce and meat section and rarely imagine that our food comes from. But if with farms throughout our country were to suddenly disappear, we'd quickly notice the difference. What farmers produce near and dear to their source of what matters. And like the mom and pop stores, they're just trying to keep the dream alive. One more season, one more year. And while there's nothing wrong with buying your goods at a larger store, try to direct more and more of your purchases to your neighborhood farmer at the local farmers market, meat market, and co-op. They haven't come all the way into your town for nothing. The hardworking farmer should be the first to receive a share of the crops. 2 Timothy verses 2:6. Pretty cool. All right. Be part of your community. Support your local community. It's important. So this is, we just read where Paul continues to preach in Syria, so it's Africa. Awesome. We will read Acts chapter 19 tomorrow. Thanks so much for listening.